Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More, and we just got back from Florida where we saw some crazy stuff while we were there, including that blob, which we will talk about. But we stayed in the 30A area between Panama City Beach and Destin, and that is right where the shark attacks happened, and those happened 2 days before we got there. And in fact, I think they happened on either side of the place where we were staying at, which is that second unit from the right. And that is our Wagoneer that we ended up renting. And of course, we love to go on vacation on the beach. And I've been fortunate enough through real estate and our other businesses that a lot of times we can stay right on the beach, which is incredibly nice. And we get to explore different units in condos and sometimes houses, which is fun too. So this place, we'll show you the inside here too, had those units up front right next to the beach. And it also had these units on back kind of closer to the road. And one of them was being renovated, which is always interesting. And this was nice for my kids. I've got 3 kids. It's got a little pool too, so the kids love the pool and the beach. And just in case we couldn't go in the water, it was also nice having that backup pool, because since we left too, it's gotten even more dangerous in this area, and I will talk about that as well. And these are some issues that we've never really dealt with, going to Florida, Mexico, all kinds of different places. And it was interesting, to say the least, to see all the different things going on. All right, so this unit, we got here really late. We flew into Pensacola. It was like a 2-hour drive. We couldn't find any direct flights to Panama City Beach, which is way closer, but anyway, we do what we can. And this is me walking through the unit for the very first time that night at like 12:30 a.m. or something. So luckily our kids were great. They made it through it. I've got 2 13-year-olds now and a 5-year-old. It's crazy how old they're getting. But the beach and ocean definitely does not look that amazing at night. But you could hear it, just couldn't see it. And here's what that view looks like during the day. I love the water in this area. It's so beautiful, and we've been to a few places, and it's hard to beat the water on the Gulf of Florida, the Panhandle of Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico. Just beautiful. I was thinking about exploring some other areas, 'cause we've gone to this area a lot, but the Mexico Beach area was intriguing to me. That got hit hard by Hurricane Michael 5 years ago. Still hasn't recovered fully, but a lot less crowded there. And I don't know if anybody has been to that area or seen it, but I'm curious what the water's like and different things, and if it's similar to this area. But that looked like a neat area too. The place did come with paddle boards and surfboards. They were locked, so we weren't able to use those. But it was my 13-year-old's birthday was right before this, so for their birthday we bought paddle boards and actually brought them with us, and then actually sold one while we were there and brought the other one back home that they can play with. So we weren't able to use the paddle boards as much as we hoped, but we did get to use them some, and we'll talk about that. But this was just a 2-bedroom, but it had a cool bunk bed thing. And yes, we forced our kids to all sleep in the same room, which worked out pretty well. They were mostly behaved, but like most children going on vacation and being excited, they didn't always go to bed as soon as they were supposed to. But there's also some arguments on who got to sleep on the top bunk, and we just switched them out. Here was my wife and I's bedroom upstairs, and when we got there, the mirror for the bathroom was just sitting there. Not sure what was going on there, but we set it back up and managed not to break it. But the place was nice. Not huge at all, but we didn't need a big place, but very functional. Can't remember if we had any real issues or anything here. And yeah, it just was on the beach was what we cared about. Again, can't see a lot from, well, there I got a good picture of myself while I was trying to open the door. Can't see a lot at night, but this is what it looked like during the day. So it's not bad waking up to this every morning, that's for sure. Now, it was coolish one evening, so we slept with the door open to listen to the ocean. I thought that'd be really nice. I was miserable. I hated the ocean is too loud for me, so I kept waking up all night. So I learned that is actually not something I like. I prefer quiet. Here's kind of the front area, a little bit of grass, a little deck. It was kind of nice, and the ocean right there. There's some steps down to the beach, which were, I don't know, probably a good 20-foot drop down there. And upstairs again too. And we kept seeing stuff in the water, and that is a shark. So, we said there was lots of interesting stuff we saw. Well, the first 3 or 4 days we were there, between 10 and 11, we saw sharks swimming just like that. Some were bigger, some were smaller, some it's just one. We saw one time there were 3 swimming together, and that is not far offshore at all. And so a couple of times I had seen sharks from up top and went over and yelled at the beach. And one time I was down closer to the beach and saw them and yelled and told people. So that was kind of the beachgoer's job. And other people were doing it too. It wasn't just me. Just keeping an eye out, watching, looking for sharks. We were in the water. We had fun. That didn't bother us. There's going to be sharks in the water all the time. You just probably won't, just not as many as there were then. And the shark attacks are so rare. It was kind of crazy. They had 2 in the same day right here. And there's a lot of speculation about orcas being out there chasing sharks and fishing. And the water being really warm, and that's why the fish were coming in and the sharks were following them. Who knows? But we still got in the water. We still had fun. But then, kind of a day or 2 later, we saw all kinds of weird red stuff out in the water, if you can see that. And we didn't know what that was. And this is kind of important leading up to what we're going to show you later, too. And that just turned out to be seaweed. So they're big, giant clumps of seaweed that washed in. And they kind of break up once they got closer to shore. It wasn't a big deal. It didn't bother us at all. But it was just weird seeing them. And it looked so red out in the ocean. My son saw it first, I think, and he's like, "There's blood in the water. There's blood. The sharks are eating something." Like, at first, it kind of looked like that. But then we realized, nope, it's just seaweed. And there's kind of what it looked like once it washed in closer to shore. But no blood. The blood did not disperse like it would in real life. It just kind of stayed in one clump. Now, one of the issues with the beach lately, I'm sure some people have heard about it, is a few kids have been killed because they dig giant holes with shovels and they cave in. Well, we were the family who would dig giant holes with shovels and have a lot of fun. Well, they actually outlawed metal shovels on this beach. You could only use plastic ones, and you really can't dig as well with those. But we totally understand why they did it. So we dug some real small holes and sand castles and stuff, but we did not dig giant holes after hearing those stories. We always try to be safe and make, big, wide holes, not deep ones. But still, it's just scary and awful how that happened to a couple of families in the last year. So hopefully, if you didn't hear, be very, very careful digging giant holes in the sand. And I think I heard some of those holes that the kids were digging were like 5 feet deep or something crazy without much width. We had some more excitement. Ambulance came by because I think one of our neighbors had broken their foot or leg or something, a really nice older couple, and they had to leave early, unfortunately, but we were just glad it wasn't something more serious after seeing the ambulance there for a while. Here, we see more of the beautiful ocean. And the cool thing about the ocean is it changes every day. It's always different. The sandbars are different. The sand is different. The waves are different. And we didn't have many calm days like this to do the paddleboarding, but we did do it a little bit. So that was nice, but it was very wavy for a lot of it. And that brings into something much, much more dangerous than sharks. And many of you have heard, 3 people died in this area last week, or maybe a couple days ago. A couple more people died a few days before that from rip currents. So much, much more dangerous than sharks is drowning, rip currents, rip tides, undertow. And it wasn't bad when we were there. There were yellow flags the whole time. They had closed the beach the day before we got there because of the shark attacks, but opened it back up. But then the day or 2 after we got back, they had actually closed the beach one day, then had red flags up because the rip tides were so bad. And people were literally going in, 40, 50 feet and getting taken out to the ocean and drowning from the rip tides. So be very, very careful. Take those warnings seriously. And we always learn, too, if you get taken by a rip current that takes you out to the ocean, don't swim against it. Don't try and go back to shore. Always swim sideways. Try to swim sideways to get out of it, or let it take you out to the ocean if you're a decent swimmer. And once it's out in the ocean, it will subside. You can swim back to shore, but swim sideways and try and swim in. But trying to swim against a riptide will just exhaust you. And so be careful with that. And luckily, we didn't have to deal with that while we were there, but it was much worse after we had left. And then, of course, this area is cool too, because there's always military planes flying by, jets flying by all the time, helicopters, and some people might not think it's cool, but we think it's kind of cool to see that. So, and yeah, there were some decent waves most of the time. And this is another time where everyone got out of the water, was pointing to the water, but I never actually saw anything this time. So that's one way you can always figure out if there's something in there, is everybody getting out and pointing. But wasn't sure what they're pointing at. Maybe it was seaweed. Now this is one of the crazier things I've seen. I know some people have seen it and might not be that crazy to them, but I posted this as a reel on TikTok and here and Facebook. I had over 20 million views on Facebook for this video talking about what this was. And again, we saw seaweed, we saw sharks, we saw all kinds of stuff from up there. And so we saw this big blob and we're like, cool, it's seaweed, right? I'm like, no, it's not seaweed, it's just staying in the same formation. It's like, is it oil? Is it a giant manta ray? Who knows what it is? Well, we got up to it. It's fish. It's thousands, or who knows, maybe millions of fish all swimming together in a bait pod. I think that's what they called it. And it was crazy. And you go up to it and they kind of swim out a little bit and they keep swimming back in. But we were watching this for a while. And what else was really cool too was they kind of separated, right? You had this really big bait pod, or I forget what they call it, but something like that. It'd be one big group. Well then, I don't know if it was the waves or something else, they got separated, and it split into two groups. And the two groups were kind of swimming together, and they kept drifting farther and farther apart. And they're literally probably 100 feet away from each other at one point. And then they just slowly swam back to get together and joined one big pod again. So nature is pretty insane and crazy. A lot of people said, you know, hey, that's what the sharks are after. The sharks are going after these big pods of fish. And always be careful when you see this. You know, never go in the water if you see one of those. Again, you hear a lot of stuff. Some people were going in the water to look at them. Some people weren't. And we'll show you kind of a crazy guy here at the end who definitely was going in the water quite a bit after them. Now, we did see quite a few fish, some rays, but not as much fish as we normally do, except for this. This was obviously more fish we normally see. But besides, and here's the crazy guy going in there. Usually we see more fish just swimming around in the ocean itself. Now we did see some, but I don't know if it's because predators were scaring them off or what, but it was still really good time, really fun. And eventually, yes, people ask me this over and over again, he did actually catch some fish, and he came back out and was like, I'm using these for bait, and then he was fishing later, so that's what he was out there doing. And after he left, the fish stayed in their pod and were fine. I said jets, there goes one of the jets, and there's the bait pod in the same view. What an amazing view that is. So like I said, fun seeing all of that. And then not to be outdone by all the sea life and ocean life, but we had some dragonflies everywhere, including in our house. They're cool, they're fun. But yeah, lots and lots of wildlife. The last few days, we did not see any sharks. We did not see any more pods of fish. But right there, if you look closely, those are like the flying fish that jump out of the ocean. And so those are always cool to watch too. And then you got the seaweed, which you don't know if it's sharks or other fish or other stuff. But yeah, always cool to see those fish. Although if you're out there with sharks and you see the jumping fish right by you, you always kind of think, I wonder if there's a shark after these fish. Again, we didn't have any close encounters. We didn't see any close encounters while we were there. We've been to the beach many, many times. Never had any dealings with sharks at all. So we weren't super worried about it. But when people get attacked, it does definitely make you think twice about it. All right, so we were leaving. I was showing one last clip of the place. Kind of weird, they had a fireplace in Florida. And the unit next to us, my daughter actually made really good friends, my 5-year-old with a 7-year-old, and they're hanging out all the time. That unit, they actually took out their fireplace and had more space. So that was actually kind of a nice use of that space as opposed to that giant fireplace that couldn't be used. So here's what it looked like, and had a great time, fun time. We'll definitely be back to Florida, but we also might explore some other areas too, because that's fun as well. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll have a lot more real estate videos coming up here soon.